Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is Thursday. Hope you all are doing really well. Hope you all have had a great week so far. It's Friday tomorrow. The weekend is upon us. Massive game of football for Everton on Saturday evening, of course. Manchester City at Goodison Park. Judging by the last couple of results in the Premier League, teams in and around us picking up points. Burnley winning last time out. Newcastle obviously unbeaten in I think 6-7, something like that. This game is as much of a must-win as you could really talk about it, really. You know, obviously we're coming up against the best team in the Premier League and it's going to be, you know, extremely difficult to get anything out of this game. But what I would say is it's not impossible. Manchester City have shown on a number of times this season that they can be beaten, and they certainly can be, you know, they can have an off day, and if they do, then they're certainly there for the taking. And it's up to Everton ultimately to get that out of that Manchester City team at the weekend. You know, we've sat here a number of times over the last couple of weeks or so and said that if we are to survive in this league and if we are going to be a Premier League team next season, then it's most likely going to be due to our home form. You know, the fact that away from home this season we've just been absolutely disgraceful, and the last couple of away games have shown just how bad we can be away from home. They were arguably two of the worst performances of the season. You know, ironically, the last two home performances have been probably two of the best performances of the season. So, you know, we've all sort of identified that, you know, Goodison Park and our home games are where, you know, we're going to need to pick up as many points as possible and going to need to get as many wins as possible. And whilst Manchester City are a fantastic side and are certainly a difficult team to beat, it's not an impossible game of football to win. And if we don't win it, we could be sitting here, you know, we could even be sitting here before a ball is kicked on Saturday evening at Goodison Park in the relegation zone, depending on how results go around the Premier League. As I said, the last couple of game days haven't particularly gone in our favour, not only in regards to our game in itself, but every other game has gone against us as well. So, a massive game, a massively difficult game, but a really big game of football. And as I said, you know, if we can't win it, at least go out there and put some fight in. At least go out there and give a proud performance. Don't go out there and just, you know, shrug your shoulders and strop your head and think, oh, we're going to lose anyway. So, and by them, I'm talking about the players. Oh, we're going to lose anyway, so we're not going to bother, you know, showing any desire or any passion. Go out there and give absolutely 150%. And if you lose, and you lose because Manchester City are a much better side than what we are, then that is what it is. That happens in football. But at least we can look at it as fans and go, do you know what? At least they went out there and they had a go, and if they can do that over the next couple of fixtures, i.e. Tottenham away from home, which is another massively difficult fixture, but Tottenham aren't particularly good at the minute. Burnley managed to pick up 3 points against them yesterday. So, you know, as I said, it will be tough. I think it's a winnable game in regards to, I think Manchester City have shown that they can drop points. They've shown that they can put in poor performances. They did literally last time out against Tottenham, which is probably the worst thing for this game, because typically when Manchester City lose a game that everybody expects them to win, their following game they have a massive bounce back and they put about 4 or 5 past whoever they're playing next. So not ideal, but as I said, you know, we've got to go out there and we've got to give absolutely everything. And if absolutely everything isn't enough, then that, you know, that is what it is when you come up against a side as good as Manchester City. But what I don't want to see is us get beat 4-5-0 and after the second goal's gone in, just drop our heads and completely fall to bits, because that isn't the type of fight and desire that will keep you in the Premier League. You know, if you go and watch Burnley over the last couple of weeks or so, you'll see the desire, the fight, the energy that team has, and the commitment that team has to its manager and its style, and you can tell they clearly are desperate to stay in this league, as are Newcastle. You know, Watford are fighting. Okay, they're not as good and they're not picking up as many results, but they're still showing that fight. Norwich is showing that fight. Everton at the minute at times seem to be the only team who aren't really showing that fight. Maybe Leeds as well, to be honest with you. So it's a massively important game on the weekend, and Everton have got to go out there and impress. You know, winning maybe too much of a sort of expectation, but as I said, Manchester City have shown before. Crystal Palace beat them earlier on in the season, that if you give everything and you battle with them and you fight with them and they, you know, you catch them off guard, you can certainly pick up 3 points. And Everton have done that against Manchester City a couple of times over the years at Goodison Park. I remember beating them 4-0 under Ronald Koeman. Nobody gave us a chance on that day. Manchester City were brilliant, arguably the best Manchester City side ever to have existed, and they turned up at Goodison Park and we walked all over them because they just didn't expect it, and we were phenomenal on that day. So it'll be tough, but again, it's one that I'm sure we're all looking forward to. not. We aren't here to talk about the game today. We are going to do the live game preview to that game against Manchester City. That will be tomorrow afternoon after Frank Lampard's press conference, so don't forget to join us for that one. We're actually here to do a news video, a latest news update. We've had former Everton playmaker James Rodriguez talking about Everton Football Club over the last couple of days or so. We're going to talk about those quotes and what they mean for the future, if anything. We're going to talk about a couple of fixture changes and one really, really important fixture change that has just absolutely blown my mind, and I don't quite fully understand why it's happened, but we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about Doucouré and his return to full training. Will he be back for Saturday's game against Manchester City? What a boost that would be. And if he is back in regards to being fit and available, will he start? Will he get that game time? Will Frank Lampard look at him and think, you know what, maybe we'll keep you out of this one and give you a little bit of extra time to rest, because even though he'll be injury free, he won't be match fit because he hasn't played a game of football for some weeks now. But will he be involved? Jean-Philippe Gbamin we're going to talk about as well. He has gone out on loan to CSKA Moscow. We're going to talk about whether or not he has a future at Everton Football Club, and we've got a couple of other bits to talk about as well. So if you are enjoying at any point through the live stream, please do hit that thumbs up button. It does only take a second, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. We are flying towards 6,200 subscribers now, so if you could hit that thumbs up button, if you could hit that subscribe button, that would mean an absolute massive amount to me. If you want to hit the thumbs up button as well, that'd be great, and leave a like on the stream. But anyway, let's get straight into it. We're going to talk about James Rodriguez first off, because the Colombian playmaker, former Everton midfielder, of course, or attacker, whatever you want to say, has actually been speaking about Everton over the last couple of days or so. And when I read these quotes, and when I logged onto Twitter and I seen he'd been talking about Everton, I was a little bit surprised, to be honest with you, because when James Rodriguez left the football club in the summer and went over, I never thought he would speak about Everton ever again, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. I never thought Everton would cross his lips. Now, we know he does his live streams on Twitch, and we know often he gets questions, and we know, when he was at Everton Football Club and he was coming towards the end of his time at Everton Football Club, he'd answered a lot of questions on Twitch about his future and about, Everton and who at Everton playing and this, that and the other, and it caused a big storm, his Twitch channel, when things weren't going particularly well and when his future was in doubt. But he has actually spoken about Everton over the last couple of days or so. He firstly said, "I would have liked to have been at Everton for much longer. It's a spectacular club, the fans are incredible, but I ran into a coach who didn't want to count on me. I wanted to be there. Unfortunately, the coach didn't want to count on me." Now, he then, a couple of days later, on his Twitch channel, said he was asked about a potential return to Everton. I wasn't watching the live stream, but I can only assume he was asked something along the lines of, would you return to Everton in the future? He said, "I'd come back, why not? I left everything. I always trained, worked, and the Everton fan base is very big and supports well." Again, I assume that's being loosely translated from Spanish. So, very, very positive comments about Everton Football Club in a general sense. Now, obviously, there's the dig there at Rafael Benitez, which is an expectation at this point, from James Rodriguez, and I'm sure if Luca Dean was ever asked about Everton Football Club in the future, it would be a very similar answer to the one that James Rodriguez has given. But I think it's really, really interesting that he said, "I would have liked to have been at Everton for much longer. It's a spectacular club, the fans are incredible, but I ran into a coach who didn't want to count on me. I wanted to be there." And then saying, "I'd come back, why not? I left everything. I always trained, worked, and the Everton fan base is very big and supports well." Now, I was one of the Evertonians at the time of this situation happening that was a little bit skeptical of what was going on. I was a little bit sort of, is this just, PR move from James Rodriguez in coming out and sort of covering his own back and saying the things that we want to hear to try and, create this narrative between him and the manager. And, from the manager, we were told, the manager at the time, obviously not the current manager, from Rafa Benitez, we were told he doesn't want to be, he's not training hard enough, basically. He's not working hard enough. He wants to leave. From the player, we were told, "I am working hard, I'm training hard enough, the manager just doesn't want me." And that's similar to what we're hearing now from James Rodriguez. What I think is specifically really interesting is him coming out and saying, "Sure, I'd come back, why not? And I would have stayed at Everton. I always gave everything." Things like that. Again, if this quote would have just been him coming out and saying, "Yeah, I was given everything in training and the manager just didn't want to pick me," I'd say, well, that's nothing that we haven't heard before, really. That's the same stuff. Is that of that we've heard before out of this situation. But coming out and saying, "Yes, I'd come back, why not? I enjoyed my time there, I didn't want to leave." things that he doesn't really have to say. Now, I know there's other mitigating circumstances with the James Rodriguez situation, i.e. his wages, i.e. his injuries, and I'm not entertaining that James Rodriguez would come back to Everton, because I think there's a minuscule percentage of chance that James Rodriguez will play in an Everton shirt ever again, and by minuscule percentage, I mean less than 1% chance, because of the other mitigating circumstances that we've just mentioned. His injury record isn't particularly great, and whilst, okay, he might have spent a long periods of time, or multiple periods of time out injured, his fitness was a problem. Let's not forget, James Rodriguez was injury free for a number of months, and Carlo Ancelotti didn't play him because he wasn't deemed fit enough to play. So fitness and injuries, wage obviously was massive. The reported wage was £190,000 a week for James Rodriguez whilst he was at Everton, which is just a figure that we simply cannot afford to pay any player at the moment, given our financial fair play situation, and given the fact that we could be heading towards potential relegation. I know we all want to be positive, and I know we all don't want to entertain that, but it is a very, very realistic possibility. We have to admit that it's a very, very realistic possibility. So, as I said, the James Rodriguez coming back to Everton isn't really what this is about. As I said, I don't think we'll see James Rodriguez back at Everton. I know a lot of Blues have sort of jumped on Twitter to say get him back and go after him and go and bring him back, but I don't particularly think we will do that, and I don't particularly think that would be a wise move either, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. James Rodriguez, for as good as he was, and his quality was clearly there to see, he was a fantastic footballer, technically the best footballer I've ever witnessed as an Evertonian in an Everton shirt. He is 30 years old now, and he was on upwards of around £190,000 a week at Everton Football Club. Now, it would have been a different conversation had we have said in the summer, shall we keep him? He wants to stay at Everton. He's saying he wants to stay at Everton. He's saying he likes, being at the football club. Should we keep him and go against the manager's will? That would be a different conversation to now going and bringing him back. For us to go and bring him back, we would again be paying the £190,000 that we've already shifted off of the wage bill. The team that he's currently at, Al Rayyan, will probably want a fee for him as well. So, again, it's not. This isn't a case of, James Rodriguez, are we going to sign him back? Are we going to get him back? Is he going to come back to Everton? I don't think it's that. I just thought it was really, really interesting to hear him talk about sort of being open to coming back to Everton, because if the narrative that Rafa Benitez fed us was to be believed, and that James Rodriguez didn't want to be here, and he effectively didn't want to be here from the day that Carlo Ancelotti left, then why would he come out some months later, completely out the blue? I mean, as I said, I didn't watch his live stream, but I can only assume he's read that comment out purposely. He could have ignored it, he could have moved over it, he could have just completely forgot it was there, but he's obviously read that out and then replied with a, well, why not? Yeah, I'd go back. I liked it there. I ran into a manager that didn't want me, but it was a great club with great fans. Yeah, I'd go back if he wanted to leave in the first place and he didn't want to be here. Now, some people might say, well, that's just James Rodriguez continuing to sort of spin this PR move that it wasn't on him and it was on the manager. And as I said, it's one side versus the other, and a lot of people will take James Rodriguez's side, and a lot of people will take Luca Dean's side because of the failures of Rafael Benitez, and because of the fact that Rafael Benitez basically should never have been the Everton manager. And I'm not saying that James Rodriguez isn't telling the truth, and I'm not saying that Luca Dean isn't telling the truth, but ultimately, we aren't privy to the facts of this situation at this current moment. We weren't at USM Finch Farm every single day. James Rodriguez was coming to training post Carlo Ancelotti's time. We don't know how hard he worked. We don't know the conversations that he had with Rafael Benitez. We don't know what Rafael Benitez, was up to at that point. He could be coming out and feeding us a load of bollocks to sort of keep his name uphold. But I just thought it was really, really interesting to hear James Rodriguez sort of become open to that Everton return and talk about the club in such a positive and passionate light. And again, so ever many months after he's left the football club, and conveniently, maybe ironically, just as a new manager's come in, and obviously, we've had Rafael Benitez lead the football club, is he maybe sort of hinting towards, I wouldn't mind going back there now because the manager that got rid of me isn't there, and I actually really like the club. As I said, it's all sorts of questions, it's all sort of if, buts, maybe, what does he mean by this, what does he mean by that? The reality of the situation is James Rodriguez isn't coming back to Everton. Let's be perfectly honest with you. We're in a really difficult situation with financial fair play. We're in a relegation battle, and if we go down, 90% of the squad won't be at Everton anyway because they're on far too much money, and a lot of them will want to play in the Premier League. And as I said, it sort of very much feels like that ship sailed sort of situation. But it almost, again, you read quotes like that and you read things like that and you sort of think, well, could we have maybe kept James Rodriguez for another couple of months? Could we have maybe allowed them to be a part of this team? Because I don't think there's one Evertonian out there that could genuinely sit there and say that James Rodriguez wouldn't have improved Everton this season, and James Rodriguez's quality and ability to create chances and score goals, wouldn't have contributed to Everton having at least a slightly better season. Now, yes, again, I understand the circumstances of his injuries and his wages and stuff like that, but again, I don't think we particularly just sold him because of the wages and ultimately because of the injuries, because he was only on a contract that would have lasted till the end of this season anyway. So even if that was the case, you would have thought the club would have just gone, listen, let's just get through this season, he can stay and then we won't renew his contract, because he, as I said, he was the best player technically I've ever seen in an Everton shirt, and Everton now have lost James Rodriguez and Luca Dean, who again, we're led to believe that the situation was that neither of those two players wanted to be here, but the reality is, whether they did or they didn't, we've lost our two most creative players, in a season where we're now facing relegation in February. So I thought it was interesting. As I said, I don't think there's anything more in it than just the player himself coming out and talking about his former club and talking about his relationship with his former club. Again, maybe it is a bit of a PR thing to sort of keep up his brand and to try and get the Evertonians on side. James Rodriguez and Frank Lampard have no prior relationship with each other, and I highly doubt James Rodriguez had a prior relationship with many people at Everton other than Carlo Ancelotti and maybe a couple of the players, Yerry Mina maybe, but how much say does Yerry Mina have on who Everton sign and who Everton don't sign? And very little, I would assume. So, are we likely to see James Rodriguez in an Everton shirt again? No, probably not. But it is interesting to hear his comments, and it's certainly something that you sort of read and you go, okay, interesting that again, as I said, the whole, I ran into a coach that didn't want to trust me and this, that and the other. You read that and you sort of think, yeah, he's been asked the question and he's basically answered it, backing up his point. But I'd come back to Everton, why not this, that, it makes you sort of think, well, is he fishing for the move? Is he genuinely wanting to come back to the club? I don't know. But the reality is the money that he was being paid, and the fact that he wasn't able to play the amount of games that would warrant that wage, suggests that he'd never ever come back to Everton. If James Rodriguez turned around and went, I'll come play for Everton for 50 grand a week, 60 grand a week, then I'd say, okay mate, book the next flight, we'll see you in a few hours or so. But as I said, that is extremely unlikely to happen, isn't it? He come to Everton in the first place because of Carlo Ancelotti. He admitted that himself through his own mouth, and he also come to Everton because we were willing to pay him a shitload of money. And as I said, I don't think we can read too much into it, but it's interesting. It certainly is interesting, and it's something that I thought was worth sitting down and talking about. We have had a super chat in the comments from DAGA. 021. He has donated £5, or she has donated. They have donated £5 to the live stream, saying, "Keep it up, Cam. Thank you very much, my mate. Really, really do appreciate it. It means a massive, massive amount to me. Thank you so much. If you are watching and you're enjoying, by the way, then please hit that like button. It does only take a second, and if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Let us know your thoughts on the James Rodriguez situation, by the way. Did it pull you back in? Are you sort of the opinion now of, yeah, go and get him back, he wants to come back? Or do you just sort of think, yeah, it's a bit of a PR spin, or it's him trying to maybe get himself a move away from Al Rayyan or whatever? I personally just read it and sort of just thought, yeah, is what it is. That's very much how I am with Everton at the moment, to be honest. Anything I read or see or anything like that about Everton at the moment, I'm just sort of like, yeah, it is what it is, whatever, move on. Because that's where Everton have gotten me at the moment. That's where Everton have put me with this season and with the last couple of months or so. And whilst James Rodriguez is very unlikely to come back, would you have him back? That's the question I think I want to ask in the live comments. Not necessarily do you think he will come back, because I think 99.9% of Evertonians would agree that he's very unlikely to come back because of his wage, his injury record, the fact that that situation is very much sailed. Now, forgetting forgetting will he come back? Would you have him back if the opportunity was put on the table? Let me know. Anyway, moving on. There have been a couple of fixture changes announced over the last couple of days or so. These are regarding fixtures in April. The game against West Ham United will now be played on Sunday the 3rd of April as a 2 p.m. kickoff. That is away to West Ham, of course. And the game at home to Manchester United will be played on Saturday the 9th of April at 12:30. So we play West Ham on the Sunday the 3rd at 2 p.m. No big issue with that. Bit of a nightmare for away fans going down to London on a Sunday. But again, that's to be expected in this day and age with the television companies. But the Manchester United game specifically, Saturday the 9th of April, 12:30 p.m. kickoff. Now, if you aren't aware of what Saturday the 9th of April is and the importance behind that date in the calendar of many Scousers and many people that live in and around Liverpool and many horse racing fans, is that date is actually Grand National date, Saturday the 9th of April. And very typically, fixtures between Everton and Liverpool or whoever is at home on that day will be moved because the Grand National is the biggest horse racing event in the world. I even think it got voted one year as the most watched sporting event, which is baffling considering you've got the World Cup final and the Super Bowl and stuff like that. But the Grand National, I think, was up there as one of the most watched sporting events in the world. And it takes place at Aintree Racecourse in Liverpool, which is about a 15-minute drive from Goodison Park, 20 minutes maybe, depending on how fast you're going, and about a half an hour minute drive from Anfield as well. So typically in years gone by, if Everton or Liverpool have been at home on Grand National Day, those fixtures have been moved because Merseyside Police, I believe, and again, don't quote me on this, if there's any police watching, let me know, but I believe Merseyside Police have requested that those fixtures are moved because of the fact that there is a lot of policing needed at the National and Aintree, and it's just a bit more, a bit difficult to manage both a game of football and ultimately a Grand National. Now, whoever this is that makes these decisions on fixtures, firstly, they're complete idiots. Because not only this situation, but how many times have Everton played Chelsea on a Thursday night in London and fans have been stuck getting home, or Southampton, away from home during a storm when fans haven't been able to get home? How many times have we sat here and said that television companies, whether it be BT, Sky, or anybody else, are putting fixtures, out there, and they're not having any consideration for fans whatsoever. They're not having any consideration for travelling fans, away fans, because they simply are only asked about what the prime time of television is to put a game of football on. They're not asked about whether or not you're going to have fans stuck 400-500 miles away from their home at 9-10 o'clock in the morning on a weekday. They're just asked about whether or not loads of people will watch that game. So we've known this before, and this isn't a new situation. We know the television companies don't give a shit. But to have Everton playing Manchester United at 12:30 on Grand National Day at Goodison Park, bearing in mind this isn't just Everton versus Norwich or Bournemouth or anybody else. It's Everton versus Manchester United. It's a team from Liverpool versus a team from Manchester. There's not usually much trouble in these fixtures, but there's a significantly higher police presence in these fixtures than there is in any other fixture because of the rivalry between Liverpool and Manchester Scousers and Manx. To have that game being played an hour before the first race at Aintree takes place is baffling for me. Absolutely baffling. And not only that, I believe Liverpool are playing Manchester City away on the same day. So you're going to have Manx coming into Liverpool early in the morning. You're going to have loads of Scousers going to Goodison Park and to Aintree. And then you've got Scousers coming out of Liverpool at the same time as sort of Manx are coming out of Liverpool to get to Manchester. It just baffles me. Thomas says, "Can you see United as a rival?" Not really, but you know what I'm talking about with the Scouse versus Manchester rivalry. There's a significantly higher police presence in and around the city when one of Everton or Liverpool play the Manchester teams. And there's a significantly higher presence of police around the city when the Grand National is on, because thousands and thousands of people go and watch the Grand National, and there's a high police presence needed there. So I really don't know how this is going to work, if I'm being honest with you. I really, really don't. It baffles me, but it also is a bit shit for those Evertonians that had tickets to go to the Grand National. The Grand National is not an easy event to get tickets for by any stretch of the imagination. It's not one of them where you can turn up on the day and buy a ticket. You've got to buy them years in advance, sometimes months and months in advance, certainly sometimes a year or so in advance to get a ticket. And now there'll be a lot of Evertonians that would have bought a Grand National ticket, and whilst they'll be able to get, there by 5 o'clock for the Grand National, the reality of the situation is they'll miss 2 or 3 races in between that. And when you pay that much for the ticket, you want to have the full experience. You want to have the full day. A lot of people go to the Grand National in a suit, as Goodison Park going to be full of Evertonians in suits on that day. It just seems like an absolute nightmare. And I know some people say, Cam, it's not even it's not even why you're worried about it or why you're interested in it. It's a moot point. Look at where we are in the Premier League table. But it isn't a moot point because it just proves that these television companies do not give a fuck about fans. They do not give a fuck about away travelling supporters, home travelling supporters, when games are played. They clearly don't give a shit about the police's thoughts. I would love to know what the police think of this. I would love to know how Merseyside police feel about having to deal with Everton versus Manchester United at Goodison Park at 12:30 and a Grand National which will open its doors at probably about 11 o'clock in the morning, and the thousands of people that go through those doors. I would love to know what Merseyside police think about this situation. But it highlights the fact that these idiots who run the television companies and change these fixtures and manoeuvre these games of football don't give a shit about fans. They don't give a shit about anything other than putting a game of footy on the telly and getting as many people to watch it as possible. But there you go. Maybe that's just me being a little bit pedantic. Maybe that's just me being, I don't know, worried about a situation that I shouldn't really be worried about. But there you go. That is the latest on the fixture changes. West Ham United has been moved, as has Manchester United as well. So if you were going to either of those 2 games, you might have to now check your diary and make sure that you're not doing anything on the day that those games have been moved or the time that those games have been moved. Anyway, let's get into the next bit of news and then we will get into the live comments because we haven't gotten the live comments yet. So we will get in the live comments once we get into the once we've gotten through the next bit of news. And the next bit of news is regarding Everton midfielder Abdoulaye Doucouré. Some really, really, really positive news regarding the recovery of Abdoulaye Doucouré. Everton put some pictures on social media yesterday which showed Abdoulaye back in full training ahead of Everton's Premier League fixture against Manchester City on Saturday. Obviously, we knew that early on in the week he had returned to sort of light training, or he joined in some of the warm-up sessions with the rest of the players. But Everton did confirm that Abdoulaye Doucouré had returned to full first-team training yesterday, and whether or not he's in contention of playing or starting the game on Saturday, I'm sure we'll wait and see what Frank Lampard has to say about that in his press conference tomorrow. But it is a massive, massive, massive boost. We sat here on Tuesday and spoke about the fact that Everton's midfield at the moment is very weak in options, and we saw that firsthand when Alan had to go off against Southampton, and we had to bring on Andre Gomez, and he just isn't a very effective footballer. Yes, Donny van der Beek and Alan were absolutely fantastic against Leeds, but in reality, and in an ideal world, we would have a 3 in midfield, and if we can have a 3 of Abdoulaye Doucouré, Donny van der Beek and Alan, then that puts us in a much stronger and better position than it does only having 2 of them in there. So hopefully we'll see Abdoulaye Doucouré in some form involved in the squad for Saturday's game. Whether or not he'll start, I'm sure we'll have to wait and see. But obviously, massively positive news that he is back in first team training, and we really, really need him. Let's be honest. Same with Demarai Gray. I believe he is back in training as well. Ben Godfrey has stepped up his recovery. There was pictures of him on social media stepping up his recovery. So we need all of these players back. Ben Godfrey, Demarai Gray, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Yerry Mina. No word on Yerry Mina yet, other than the update that we had last week about him not requiring surgery. Hopefully we hear more on Yerry Mina in the coming days and weeks. But certainly Abdoulaye Doucouré, Ben Godfrey, and Demarai Gray, having those players back, and or certainly close to being back is a massive boost, and it's really come at a time when we need the most, don't we? Really, we need a full strength team. We absolutely need a full strength team. We need everybody back and fighting, and if we get everybody back and fighting, then and we can get a couple of good results under our belt, then I think we should be okay. But first and foremost, it's about getting those players that are currently out injured fit, and being able to compete and start games of football again. So massively positive update on Abdoulaye Doucouré. As I said, whether or not we'll see him on Saturday, we'll wait and see. I'm sure Frank Lampard will discuss that in his press conference tomorrow, and we will eagerly look forward to hearing what Frank has to say. We will be back with the live game preview tomorrow, by the way, so if you want to join us and check that out, then please do so. Anyway, let's get into the live comments before we talk about the last couple of bits of news, of updates over the last couple of days or so. Let's get straight into the comments. DGST says, getting back at all costs, talking about Hammers. Interesting. Sander says, hello, Cam, with Burnley winning yesterday, I am legitimately scared of what's to come. Me too, mate, me too. Everton, as worrying as it is, and considering we play, I think our next 3 games are against teams in the top 8, and our next game is against the reigning champions and the best team in the league. It's scary how desperately we need to not drop any sort of any point, certainly at Goodison Park. And it's worrying, mate. It really, really is worrying, especially when you look at, as you said, other teams around us. The likes of Burnley's are picking up results. Newcastle haven't lost a game for some time now. Norwich is showing that fight. Okay, Watford are as well, but they're losing. It's only really seems to be Leeds at the moment who are in as big of a mess as us. Everybody else seems to be climbing their way out of it and making their way out of it, and that is a worry. Sean says, agree with you totally. Thank you, my mate. Eugene says, I was watching the Ashley Cole interview on Everton's YouTube. I'm going to watch it after this, actually. Is it good? Let me know. Eugene says... Kevin says, alright, Cam lad, what's happening, mate? Sean says, James Rodriguez. Yes, he says, off work all week, got COVID, wrote off, glad something to watch. Cheers, Cam. Oh, sorry to hear that, my mate. I hope you're doing well with it. Hope it hasn't affected you too much. Nasty things. So I hope you're doing well, my mate. Thank you very much for all of the support, as always. We're not going to get into the political talk. We're not going to get into the talk about Russia and Ukraine because I don't want to get myself into trouble. Firstly, we will touch on the situation a little bit towards the end of the video because Everton left back Vitaly Mykolenko has posted a statement regarding it. So we'll talk about that and we'll read that statement out. However, we're not going to sit here and get into the ins and outs of it. On this live stream. Eugene says, this time next Thursday night, Everton in the FA Cup against Bournemouth Wood. We certainly are. Hopefully a win. Afternoon says, basic. If James Rodriguez does come back, he's on a massive wedge. Don't think we can afford him. I don't think he's coming back, mate. I think James Rodriguez is having a mare when he transferred too. Don't think he likes it and wants to come back. Yeah, maybe. That was Kevin. Mark says, we could be in 18th place before we even kick off on Saturday. That is actually very scary. Rodriguez shows what a idiot, let's say, Rafa is. We lost him and Dean through that red. Idiot, we'll say again. Abigail says, James won't come back. We don't have the money. I don't think he'll come back anyway. Philip says, if his wages and fitness can be sorted, I'd definitely take him back. He's a class player. He is. There's absolutely no doubt in his technical ability. Technically, he's an absolutely wonderful footballer. Absolutely wonderful. Louis says, I would definitely take James on a year with an option for the second. That's what we had him on anyway. And we sold him. Personally, I think that boat has sailed. Basic says, I think there's a bit of BS in this rumour. In the rumours of him leaving started as soon as Carlo left, which usually means his agent is throwing his name out way before RB was appointed. They did, which is really, really interesting. And that's what confused me about this situation, is if that's the case, then fine. That's the case. He didn't want to be here. He wanted to leave because Carlo left. He only come because Carlo come. Fine. But why are you coming out on an Instagram, on a Twitch stream, and saying, oh yeah, I'd go back? Why? If you didn't want to be here, then just ignore the question, or just say, no, I had good times at Everton, but I think, we've moved on now and we move on to better things. Why specifically say, oh, I'd come back, yeah, if you didn't want to be here in the first place? Can't see him coming back, says Mark. Me neither. Kevin says, can't see Lampard being interested in bringing him in, to be honest. Yeah, I don't think he's the type of player that Frank Lampard will be interested in bringing in, and that's why I think that the sort of, I don't think we'll see him back in an Everton shirt. Can't see him come back for 50k a week, says Basic. Everton needs centre-backs, says Kazudi. We don't need centre-backs, we need a new squad, says Mark. Yeah, fair enough. Kevin says, a lot of Deadwood needs getting rid of when the season ends. Squad is full of shithouses. He's fishing for the move, Cam, says Kevin. And Hernandez says, would rather wait and hope that the Gallagher rumours are true with Lampard. I would much... it's difficult. I was going to say I would much rather Conor Gallagher than James Rodriguez, which would be a bit of a mad thing to say considering James Rodriguez's pedigree in football. But I would rather Everton went and got Conor Gallagher than brought James Rodriguez back. But how likely is it that Everton get Conor Gallagher? I don't know. I just don't know. I think there'll be much better teams in much more comfortable positions after Conor Gallagher than Everton this summer. I really, really do. Crystal Palace are probably one of those at the moment. If you are enjoying, by the way, please hit that like button. It only takes a second. And if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. Let's move on to the next story then, and it is regarding Everton midfielder Jean-Philippe Gbamin. Jean-Philippe Gbamin has joined CSKA Moscow on loan until the end of the season. The midfielder was obviously struggling to get in the Everton side over the last few weeks or so. New manager Frank Lampard had barely called upon him in the last couple of games or so, and it's become apparent that, you know, again, ever since his return from injury, he just isn't getting that game time, and to be honest, I think there's many reasons for that. We obviously saw him start the game against Wolves at Molineux early on in the season, and he played in a midfield too, and for 45 minutes it was arguably the worst midfield performance I've seen from a professional footballer for a long time. He wasn't very good. Now I understand the reasons why. He was only just coming back from injury, match fitness was an issue, he hasn't played in the Premier League ever really, barring the odd game 4 years ago when he joined. So I'm not by any stretch of the imagination sitting here and having a go at Jean-Philippe Gbamin, or sitting here saying that he didn't deserve to be in the squad or what have you. But the reality of the situation with Jean-Philippe Gbamin is he needs a game time, and he needs a side that are going to be able to offer him that game time and be able to, sort of not carry him as per se, but be able to understand that he isn't going to be as sharp as he maybe will be when this process is over. From the off, he may make mistakes, he mightn't be too quick to the ball, his passing mightn't be absolutely there at all times, his movement mightn't be absolutely there at all times. He needs to be playing week in, week out in a team that can accommodate him in that sense, and Everton at the moment simply can't accommodate him in that sense. We can't accommodate Jean-Philippe Gbamin. We're in a relegation battle, it's mid-February, we've got some ridiculously difficult games coming up, we're shocking away from home, we're good at home, or have been over the last couple of games or so, but we've got a couple of difficult home games coming up. We can't afford to accommodate Jean-Philippe Gbamin. We simply can't. Frank Lampard would have been ridiculous to start Jean-Philippe Gbamin in any of the recent games, because he isn't ready, he isn't match fit, he isn't suited to the Premier League at the moment, and that's not saying he never will be. He's got all of the attributes to be suited to the Premier League. He's big, he's tall, he's not particularly slow, he's good, he's got he moves his body, puts his body in the way. We just can't afford to we simply can't afford to accommodate him in this team at the moment. We need players that are ready there for the now and ready to get going and be able to put in top Premier League performances week in, week out. Not players that have been out for 4 years and you look at and sort of go, oh well, he'll take 3 or 4 weeks to bed in and to settle in. We can't afford that. So I actually think the loan move for Jean-Philippe Gbamin is the right move. Because ultimately, if he was to stay at Everton, he wouldn't be getting any game time. Well, certainly not much game time. If any, he is still only 26 years old, which is interesting. He's gone there on loan, of course, till for the remainder of the season. Their loan market was still open, and that's the reason as to why they were able to bring him in, and hopefully, ultimately, he's able to get the game time that he deserves, and that he that he ultimately needs over in Moscow. Now obviously, as I said, certain things are going on in the world at the moment which might hinder that, but putting them to one side at the moment, at the end of the day, the hope is that Jean-Philippe Gbamin will start as many games as possible over there. He will be able to be a consistent member of their first team, and he will be able to be accommodated for it. He won't get ragged off if he has a bad half, or he won't get, he won't be sitting on the bench for the remainder of the season. He'll actually get that game time. He'll get that opportunity to build his fitness back up, build his confidence back up, and maybe remove that subconscious thing that he has at the moment in his mind of constantly associating football and games of football with injuries. And I'm not saying that he has got that, but there's a strong possibility that the injuries that Jean-Philippe Gbamin has had over the years will absolutely, undoubtedly have caused him to suffer from mental health problems. Maybe not necessarily by the mere sort of sense of mental health problems, but it would have certainly affected him mentally and affected how he feels and stuff like that. Can you imagine if you were joined the best league in the world and you had this opportunity to go and show how good you were, and then, a couple of weeks after joining a team, you got an injury that kept you out for 2 years, and then you come back and then you got another injury that kept you out for another year, and 5 years later you still haven't been able to show that? Can you imagine how hard that must be for Jean-Philippe Gbamin? And I do really, really feel for Jean-Philippe Gbamin, because it's not his fault. It's not his fault whatsoever. It's not his fault he's picked up injuries. It's not his fault that he, we're in this situation. So there may well be a subconscious part of his mind that when he thinks about football and starts to associate football, he's associating it with injuries, and maybe that's why he doesn't really want to commit himself into challenges, or he doesn't really want to move the ball around as much as he should, because again, it's still very, very difficult for him. So hopefully he can go out in Russia, get as much game time as he possibly can, and that subconscious sort of association will turn from. And again, I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just sort of thinking about reasons as to why, maybe he hasn't been as involved with Everton over the last couple of weeks. Maybe is that sort of game time will change that. That mindset from, okay, every time I play football I pick up an injury, to actually I've played for 4 or 5 months here straight with no injury, so I'm ready to go again now. And whether that means for Everton or not is a different question. The irony is Jean-Philippe Gbamin is the type of player Everton really, really need at the moment. Physical midfielder, big, puts himself about, can move the ball around, and I'm basing all of that off his time at Mainz, obviously, because we can't base any of that off his time at Everton, because we haven't seen any of it at Everton. But he still is only relatively young. He's 26 years old, which isn't old by any stretch of the imagination. And his injury record is, it's sad. It's sad when you think about it. So during his time at Mainz and prior to joining Everton, he had from 2015 to 2016 all the way up until 2018-19, just before he joined Everton, he had around about 200 days out injured, I believe, maybe just over 200 days out injured. And that was from 2015-16 to 2018-19. He joined Everton, I believe, in the first week of August 2019. And on the 18th of August 2019, he picked up a hamstring injury, which kept him out for 229 days. He played one game that season, which was at home to Crystal Palace, and he was out for 229 days, which is just baffling, isn't it? Absolutely baffling. He then returned on the 3rd of April, according to Transfer Market. These dates might be a little bit skewed, but according to Transfer Market, he returned on the 3rd of April 2020, after 229 days out with a hamstring injury. And then on the 28th of May, so somewhat 7 weeks later, he picked up an Achilles tendon rupture, which kept him out for a further 309 days. So nearly a year. He didn't return then until April 2nd, 2021. On April 10th, 2021, a week later, he picked up a medial collateral ligament injury, which kept him out for a further 81 days until June 2021. So he literally hasn't had a break. He hasn't had any real consistent period of fitness, of being injury free. Effectively, he's had 1 or 2 weeks, since he's joined Everton, being injury free, and these aren't like, bruised ribs or bruised ankles. We're talking about serious footballing injuries. So I do really, really feel for Jean-Philippe Gbamin, and I hope that this loan move is the right move for him. I hope that he can go out there and he can show himself. I hope he can show his quality. I hope he can show his ability. And ultimately, I hope he gets the game time to be able to give Frank Lampard and everybody at Everton a decision to make in the summer, whether or not he stays at the football club or whether or not they move him on to go elsewhere and further his career then. But his injury record is sad. It's really, really, really sad when you think about it. And ultimately, I think this loan move is a good move. Hopefully he gets out there and does well. Hopefully he plays week in, week out. I fully expect to see him playing week in, week out. And yeah, it is. Yes, I suppose we'll wait and see, won't we? We'll wait and see. We will jump back in the live comments in just a moment, but we are going to move on to the next story before we do that. And this is regarding Vitaly Mykolenko. Now, again, as I said, I wasn't going to touch on the situation over in Ukraine. But Everton left back Vitaly Mykolenko has put something on Instagram. Obviously, we know he's from Ukraine, come over from Ukraine in January, from Dynamo Kiev, of course. And it's obviously an extremely worrying and difficult time for him and his family at the moment. And as have a lot of footballers, to be fair. He wasn't the only footballer to come out and say something. A lot of footballers from Russia and Ukraine have come out and spoken about this. And Vitaly Mykolenko has said, "I want the whole world to know that the Russian army is now killing civilians in all cities of independent Ukraine. Russian media writes that they are defending Donetsk and Luhansk, but this is not true. It's hard to hear the anxious voice of my parents who are looking for an opportunity to protect themselves and help others, and I cannot help my parents. I ask the whole world to help my homeland. I am proud to be Ukrainian. Glory to Ukraine." Now that is such a difficult statement to read. Such a difficult statement to read, and such a difficult statement to sort of comprehend, coming from a player currently a player currently at Everton, or anybody really. If had anybody have written that statement and put that post up, it would have been extremely difficult to read. I can't even begin to imagine what Vitaly Mykolenko is going through at the moment. He's a young lad, early 20s, come over to get a Premier League move to a Premier League team, and within a month of him coming over, he's left his family, he's left his friends, he's left his parents, he's left however many siblings he's got. And now there's this situation in Ukraine, which is extremely worrying and extremely frightening. It's for him and for everybody involved, and for everybody over in Ukraine, and for us as Evertonians. Now all as we can do is get behind Vitaly Mykolenko. All as we can do is get behind Vitaly Mykolenko. And at the end of the day, football is irrelevant in this situation. Absolutely irrelevant. If Vitaly Mykolenko doesn't play on Saturday, then football is a nothing to him. We're all sitting here talking about wanting Everton to survive and wanting Everton to, be in the Premier League next season, how important this game is and how important the next few games are. But let's be honest, if we were in the situation Vitaly Mykolenko was in, we wouldn't give a fuck about Everton, or where Everton were, or football in general, or the Premier League, or whether we're going to get relegated. We'd care about our families and the safety of our families and friends, and the fact that we were hundreds of miles away without being able to be there with them. So football for Vitaly Mykolenko is just secondary for at the minute, and as it should be. And he might use football as a coping mechanism and a distraction, and maybe that will work in his favour. But it's really, really hard to read that statement. Really, really hard to read it. Hear him say things like hearing my parents' anxious voice on the phone and stuff like. I can't even. I live with my mum and dad. They're literally downstairs in the same house. I can't even imagine how that conversation feels to have between a 21, 22-year-old footballer and, his parents. All I want to say is I wish the very, very best to everybody in Ukraine. My thoughts, our thoughts, everybody's thoughts go out to everybody over there, the family and friends of Vitaly Mykolenko, but also everybody else over in Ukraine at such a scary and difficult time. And hopefully there can be a resolution that isn't that is a peaceful one. Hopefully there's a peaceful resolution to be had to this situation. How likely that is a different question, and the future of this planet that we live in is very certainly can be questioned at the moment. But I really do hope that there is a peaceful resolution to what's going on at the moment, because I can't even begin to imagine how those people over in Ukraine are feeling at the moment. And as I said, from Vitaly Mykolenko's point of view, we've just got to get behind the lad, and we've got to support him, and we've got to understand that he's got bigger things on his mind than playing for Everton at the moment, and as he should as well. Everton, I believe, have offered him any support that they can potentially give him. I think I read an article today saying he hasn't actually asked for support from Everton, but they have stated that they would offer him as much support as possible if he was to ask. But yeah, it's scary times. And as I said, all of our thoughts go out with not only Vitaly Mykolenko and Vitaly's family and friends, but also everybody in Ukraine at such a difficult time. Where are we? Tuthi says, are Mykolenko and Zinchenko the only Ukrainian lads in the Prem? Yarmolenko as well at West Ham, I believe. And I'm not too sure whether there's any other Ukrainian players at this current moment. Jesus, it's so sad. Putin is. Listen, we're not going to get into the political talk, but it's scary. It's scary. I don't smoke any sort of substance, and I don't take any sort of drug. What that was the green screen basically reacting with the light from my Mac, and making it look like I was absolutely on a different planet, but I'm not. I've got a little bit of a cold, my nose is running, and I'm going to boxing in about half an hour. Get Patterson in the team, says Tom Rain. Well said, Cam. Bench. It's not necessarily about benching him. It's about talking openly with him. If he wants to play and he wants to start, and he might, as I said, he might use this as a coping mechanism. He might say, well, I can't be over there anyway, so if I focus on football or the game, then it means I'm not focusing on what's going on. I suppose that's a conversation we'd have to have with him, but ultimately we have to understand that if he says, my head's not really in it at the moment, that's completely understandable. He's a human being. He's a young lad. Harold says Cam is a young guy but speaks with the wisdom of an older guy. That means Cam is boss. Thank you, mate. Can't believe I forgot. Yarmo says Toothy. Need 2 new centre backs this in the summer. Shocking not getting one. Toothy says Cam, you look high as a kite right now. I'm not, mate. I'm not. Harold says the only past Everton player I would accept back is Romelu Lukaku. None other than Jack Rodriguez go back and pose in this luxury jet. Yes, Cam does. He's just making the point, and then he gets into the live comments. David says, mate, take a breath. I do take a breath, mate, but I was making a point, so I thought I'd finish my point. All that is based on FIFA ratings. Feel bad for him, but wish him the best of luck. Don't know what we were talking about there. Would risk Gray. How come Gbamin couldn't get time for the under-23s? I don't know. Maybe that wasn't helping him. Maybe playing in the under-23s at that level wasn't going to help him in towards being a professional footballer in one of the top leagues in Europe, because the under-23s, the level of that football is not even comparable to the Premier League and certainly other leagues in Europe. So yeah, maybe that's the reason. I don't know. Maybe he didn't want to play in the under-23s. Why did we loan out Nkunku? Because we probably didn't think we were selling Luka Dean at the time, did we? JPG will be bossing the championship for us, says Toothy. John says the first Liverpool pen that was given was a joke, exactly the same as our one, given the Premier League stage and the officials get told which way to bend it. And Lavert says he reminds me of Sheedy, not a bad thing to say, but not now. Rehammers though. Listen, on the penalty situation, is anybody surprised? Is anybody really that interested they're a joke. The officials in this league are an absolute joke. We are going to finish it up there. Then one thing I did want to say before I go out, and I want to put this to everybody watching because I want to give anybody that wants to an opportunity. I unfortunately am going to miss the game on Saturday. I'm going to try and watch it, but I won't be at Goodison Park, and there's a strong possibility I will be somewhere where I've got absolutely no connection whatsoever. Effectively, basically what I'm saying is I'm going camping, so I may have no means to watch the game or keep everybody updated, or in fact do an instant match reaction or the play ratings after the game. So what I do want to say, there's anybody out there that is interested in doing an instant match reaction or a player ratings for the game on Saturday, then please do get in touch with me. You can either email me at TheMightyBluesEFC@gmail.com. That is TheMightyBluesEFC@gmail.com, or follow us on Twitter at MightyBluesYT and drop us a little message. Doesn't have to be a long video, couple of minutes for an instant match reaction, 5, 6, 7 minutes for the play ratings, whatever. Don't have to do both if you only want to do one. If you don't want to do any, then that's absolutely fine. But I just thought, because I'm unlikely to be able to cover them, I thought I'd ask anybody watching the channel that might want to get involved in all of this and have your say after the game and do a little video. Then we'll get it sorted out. I will be watching the game obviously upon my return, so I'll be able to do a review on the Monday. And if there's nobody that is wanting to do a reaction or a play ratings, then I'll basically just do the instant match reaction and the play ratings on the Sunday morning, so it won't be straight after the game, it'll actually be the day after, but those videos will be out in some form regardless. But I just thought I'd put that out there in case anybody watches these videos and thinks, you know what, I'd love to get involved with that, I'd love to have a little go at that. So there you go. Now's your chance. If you want to get involved, let us know, get in touch with me, and we will get it sorted. Anyway, Other than that, that is going to do it for today's live stream. If you have enjoyed this one, please hit that like button. Toothy says, chance to see the face of an Evertonian. Exactly, chance of another Evertonian, not just me. You know, I'm sure you're all sick of me coming on and rambling and saying my shite week in, week out. There's a chance for somebody else to get on and have their say, which is what this channel is all about. Damien says, hope you're well, Cam. Can't wait for Thursday night. Get back to the old lady with my elders lad is right. Toothy says, why can't you do a reaction in the woods, Cam? It's not that I can't do one. It's that I will probably have no connection to upload it, and I will probably have no means of watching the game, so it won't get on YouTube. I can certainly film it if I've got a connection. Then I'll watch the game and I'll do the reaction. But I'm led to believe that where we're going won't have internet. So, and I'm not too fussed about it, to be honest with you, because I could do with the break away from life for a couple of days. So, but as I said, I will still be watching the game, and I will still be doing the review and stuff. And as I said, if I don't do the instant match reaction and the play ratings on Saturday and nobody does, then we'll do it on the Sunday anyway. So it'll still be there. You'll still get a video. Don't worry about that. If you are enjoying it, if you have enjoyed this video, please hit that like button. It does only take a second. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. It means a massive amount to me. We are flying towards 6,200. Forgot then 6,200. So if you could hit that subscribe button, it would be great. But until then, we will be back tomorrow with the game preview to Everton's Premier League fixture against Manchester City. So don't forget to join us for that one. Until then, massive thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon on the Mighty Blues. Cheers for watching. See you after.